Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Once again, we read and reflect upon the gospel of today's liturgy, the Gospel of St. Luke. When the time arrived for Elizabeth to have her child, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown his great mercy towards her, and they rejoiced with her. When they came on the 8th day to circumcise the child, they were going to call him Zachariah after his father. But his mother said in reply, "No, he will be called John." But they answered her, "There is no one among your relatives who has this name." So they made signs asking his father what he wished him to be called. He asked for a tablet and wrote, "John is his name." And all were amazed. Immediately his mouth was open and his tongue freed, and he spoke, blessing of God. The fear came upon all their neighbors, and all these matters were discussed throughout the hill country of Judea. All who heard these things took them to heart, saying, "What then will this child be?" For surely the hand of the Lord was with him. The Gospel of the Lord. Reflecting on this moment where they were going to circumcise John and name him, it reminds me of baptisms in our own church. When I was first ordained, the father, the godmother, and the godfather and the baby were the only ones of the family who showed. Now, through the years, our customs have changed, and now it seems to me they reflect very much to this gospel. Everybody in the family shows up. Mom, dad, grandpa, grandma, aunts, uncles, babies, cousins, all sorts of people. Church is filled often enough. And kids are running around, and I would say to the families, it's a family event. Don't worry about the noise and the confusion. That's what family events are. And I think that's what I picture here. There's a challenge as to what name the baby will be called, and everyone has an opinion because they're not following protocol, they're not following custom. They're not going to name the baby Zachariah after his dad. John, why name John? There's nobody in the family, and everybody has an opinion. And finally, they turn to Zachariah, who hasn't spoken since he challenged the angel when he heard the news that his wife Elizabeth was pregnant. So he had been quiet for at least 6 and 9 months, or perhaps longer. And all of a sudden, he makes a pronouncement. His name will be John. And everyone stops talking. That's a scene that has charm, almost can bring a smile with the confusion. But I think it might say something to us that often enough, in the midst of any day, I will hear so many people have opinions about so many things, including myself. Always have an opinion, always have a solution, and the undercurrent often is, if you just listen to me. And then I realized, too, that I never have silence. I very rarely listen, really listen. Not to other people. I can't help but hear them. But listen to what they may be saying, see how it touches my heart. But more than that even, how often do I remain silent and listen to God? Almost never. I'm busy with my agenda, telling God how to be God, who to pray for, when to pray for it, make them better by Tuesday or whatever it may be. And if I stop and just sit for a moment, that can bring a smile to my face. Here I am in prayer, making sure God knows what I want, what I need, how I should have the need fulfilled. And I never listen. And when I don't get an answer, often I find myself then questioning, is it me? Am I not praying correctly? It's always about me, and almost never about God. And yet the essence of prayer is God speaking to me, not me speaking to God. That I pray so that I remain in touch with God. I pray so that I open time, if you will, in my busy life, with everybody's opinions echoing, with my conclusions being the solution. I never listen to what God might be saying, and I don't hear voices. But in the silence of prayer, if I just sit for a moment every day and remember that God is in the middle of my life, what is He trying to say to me? To be open to that, to be quiet, to trust it. I don't hear voices, and I almost never get detailed solutions. But all of a sudden, I find, and the word that comes to my mind, I find clarity. I see things better, clearer, not necessarily solutions, but I wind up with a sense of what God might want. And because there are no solutions, it means I have to take a chance. I have to risk. I have to trust. But if I do it often enough, if I have, in a sense, a history of silence in my prayer, I learn to trust in silence. It makes me nervous. I don't like silence. I see people walking around, young people especially, with earphones, or whatever they have nowadays. Since I'm deaf, it doesn't matter if I had earphones on or not. I can't hear them. So silence is almost a part of my existence. But I wonder why we wear the earphones, why we need music, why we need sound, why we need distraction. Maybe ultimately it's because if I listen to just the voices of my life, I find confusion, I find multiple voices. And when I really try to be quiet, maybe the biggest fear is that I will hear God, that I might have to respond in faith and with perseverance. So listening to Elizabeth and Zachary bringing their child, after waiting all of this time, bringing their child to the temple to name him, and everyone shouting their opinions as to what should be. Finally, the man who has been silent for at least 9 months has arrived at a decision. God wants him to be called John. And then after it, does that solve the problem? Word went out throughout Judea, and they wondered and talked about what's going to happen to this boy. Surely something, because of the extraordinary things that have happened, God must be with them. What's he going to turn out to be? That could be a question for all of us. And the answer? Trust. The God who is present to me today will be there tomorrow. I just have to once in a while stop and listen and trust. We hope that you continue to pray for one another and that you continue to be well. And we look forward to you joining us again in the future.